Yep. Good evening. Sorry I'm late. I'm Andrew Homburg. My brother Chris here is with me as well. And 3 years ago, in May of 2016, we purchased the last phase of Coyle Island South from John DeWitt and Bruce Harms, the developers of North and South Coyle Islands. That encompasses everything from essentially the detention basins that are built on either side of Limerick Drive to the west. So this triangle. Lots 1, 2, 3, and 49 along the frontage, the commercial lots that are subject of the zoning request. And then 17 residential lots on the southern portion of the lot. This is water control and treatment and volume control. This is infiltration. Those, as I said, are both built and in place. You doing CSMs or zoning?
Zoning.
This is zoning.
Zoning, okay. So the zoning change request is for the 4 commercial lots, 1, 2, 3, 49. Requesting a change from neighborhood office designation to planned business designation. PB is a zoning type that's newer, I guess. Neighborhood offices, I think maybe a little bit of a remnant from the days of Vanderwall and Mike Slavny. We had those zoning types up on our commercial district on Highway N in our First Ave North Lawn development. Presently, we've accomplished 2 out of 6 lots over the course of 20 plus years. I think part of the problem with the first decade or so, roughly, was zoning designation there. The neighborhood zoning designation limited footprints to 5,000 square feet, limited uses severely. The other side of the coin, the other half of the equation was that we were outside of the TID boundary, or Commerce Park. That encompassed everything north and east of us, and we were just kind of a little bit outside of that. So I guess the objective this time around is to try to not repeat our mistakes of the past and go with a more modern and flexible and effective zoning designation on these lots, as well as encompassing this area in new TID 8, which...
Can you speak louder?
Maybe?
Or at least look at us so
Okay.
we can hear you.
Sure.
Thank you.
Encompass new TID 8 as well in this land within that new boundary district. So that's the overview on zoning.
All right. Okay, thank you. Aaron and Mike, I'll let you talk about any conditions or discussions with Andrew on this.
Yeah, I think the biggest limitation with the neighborhood office zoning was on the maximum building size, which was 5,000 square feet, which is fairly small for an office or commercial building. Going to planned business would take away that maximum. You're still limited by things like the floor area ratio and the amount of green space you have to have on the lot, but you could have a little bit larger building than that. In terms of uses, this would allow retail uses in addition to some of the office uses, but most of the other permitted land uses do stay the same. The other thing that would change with going from neighborhood office to planned business, they would have to have a thicker, more robust landscaping buffer where the parcels abut any residential parcels. So to the south and on the west.
Mike, did you have anything engineering-wise?
No, from the thoughts on the green space requirements, it'll be per the approved stormwater management plan as far as that goes, with everything sized for that. So I don't have any problems with that because that's already set as far as having a pervious area out there.
All right. Debbie Wilcox, did I get that right?
Yeah.
Okay. Debbie has asked to speak, and I know one of her questions was, if you can come on up here, Debbie, and stand at the podium, sit next to Andrew, whatever. I know you had some questions. One of them was...
I can just stand here. That
Sure.
would be fine.
One of them was the park, the location of the park on the map.
Yeah, but I was just being curious about that. I have a more interest in the property putting in the zoning, the businesses parallel to our property, which is, we have part of the old Coyle estate, 3 acres there, that goes from Cottage Grove Road back to by the golf course.
This parcel.
Yes.
Okay.
And I have a concern there because, well, I don't like the idea of having buildings on top of me. I'd rather have wildlife, which we have currently. But I have a concern because several years ago we went to, I believe it was the town and the village hearing, and we talked about the property and you were being zoned or something. And it was agreed that there would be a 50-foot clearance between our property and your property. That means that nothing would be parked. So if somebody had a house here and this is our property, 50 feet, and then their backyard would hit that 50 feet clearance. And that is in the minutes, at least with the town. And I know that one of your family members kept reminding my kids that they didn't like that rule that was instated. So so it is a 50-foot clearance. So the way you show it on the map, it shows it right up to our property. And that also that 50-foot clearance was on your property, and it was to be taken care of twice a year. That means mowed and upkeep twice a year, which the trees are starting to block our view of the golf course because they've been growing wild. But anyways, the point is the clearance. The other, do you want me to keep on with my concerns?
You got another minute or so if you want.
Okay, my other concerns are the existing exits. When the school was built, we agreed to have the bike trail put across our property, and then we have to go out the driveway and go into a medium and then go left. And it's kind of dangerous at times, but we agreed to do this for the school and for the village and everything else. Well, now I'm concerned that if we have these businesses parallel to our property, how are we ever going to get out? And how are we ever going to exit and get out into our road? And I'm not going to, I don't want people to say, well, we decided you could go right and do a U-turn and come back west, because that does not work. I've almost been hit several times just doing the other thing. So that's a concern of mine if that happens. I was wondering about the golf course. You show family homes. You show single-family homes parallel to our property, but beyond that, here, you show homes, and I'm wondering, they're like cut off. What is that? What is this? Right here. What's that?
These are the existing homes in the first phase of Coyle Island South.
So down by the pond?
Yeah, so the
Okay.
pond, and it's a little confusing here,
Yeah, it
Debbie,
is,
because
'cause it says park.
because it says park, and that's the
Yeah.
big pond where people play hockey and skate.
Okay.
Is right there.
All right, I understand that.
Yeah, and then there's a smaller, less obvious pond across the street, so that the dead end where the road closed barricaded, that last house on the left there is right about there.
Okay.
So the property line with the golf course is basically where the color ends.
Okay.
That's
So-
the southern limits.
So here it says single-family homes?
Yep.
Does that mean one story?
No.
So that's going to block our view of any of the golf course?
You sit pretty high, so I'm not sure
No,
that
it
it'll
will.
block your view.
Yeah, but,
Because I've been up there, we've met before. and
yeah, I met
it's-
you once for a brief time, yeah.
Yep.
So I'm concerned about that too, but mostly is the 50-foot clearance, and what's beyond the, and also, which is minimum, but I have to look at the whole picture. So the whole picture is currently we have drainage coming down Meadow Grove and going under our property and then going over to your property, but it doesn't drain properly because your property is higher. If this is approved, I just want to ensure the proper drainage system is put through there, so we don't keep having the water from Meadow Grove coming into our property.
A couple
our
of those
driveway.
questions are probably more suited for Mike and Aaron, but that's fine. We'll get
Okay.
an answer for you.
Well, as long as somebody can answer it. But I do want to say I'm opposed to this development, the way it currently is.
Okay, thank you. All right, Mike or Aaron, any comments, questions on
So the rezoning and the CSMs we're looking at later, neither would have an effect on that 50-foot setback. That was something that was put in place by the town and the village
Okay.
a while back, and the village on its own could not change that, so that.
So the 50-foot setback stays.
What'd you say?
The 50-foot setback stays. We, as the village, can't change it individually, just like, and this has come up in the,
There's a designation of the
Bruce
plan.
Armstade's.
It indicates right here, there's a 50-foot building setback line, and that was part of that approval.
Well, I
That
don't
was-
see that in here.
That's not my map. That was.
That's probably our map, so
Yeah.
Andrew's got a more accurate one.
My
Can I
CSMs,
see it?
sure. And I'll show you where it was before and where it is after. So, in the before the commission where you came and asked DeWitt and Harms to, and the village and the town to jointly all collectively impose that, is this line right here, Debbie? And
Okay.
that's a 50-foot building setback line, right there.
Okay.
And then on my 3 CSMs that we're asking for approval on, you can see the same line right here.
Okay,
And we're not changing that.
all right.
So this is it. You know, all the way along, your property is 100 foot by 900 foot here.
Okay.
So that setback line is not being changed. I think the reason is the zoning map is just indicating the zoning of that area, so it is being rezoned, but it's not changing the building setback.
Okay. So then the property, the people who move in, this would be their backyard.
They'll own it all the way to our common property line. But instead of the standard 30-foot building setback line, what they imposed years ago as an additional buffer at your request was the 50-foot setback line.
Yeah, we have 50 foot.
Right, but their
But it's
ownership
supposed-
goes to the common ownership line.
That's not what they said at the meeting.
I wasn't
The
at-
meeting said that the property, their property line would start at the 50 foot.
No, I don't believe that's accurate.
I'll go to town and get it.
Okay.
Right.
But
I
you
wasn't
guys
there,
can get it.
but there was no conveyance of property ownership.
Okay. All right, and the other question was drainage, Mike, is that something that obviously is addressed with the development?
Yeah, and there's a plan from the original 2005 submittal and 2014 submittals, you know, that have the drainage plan worked out on this, and that's, you know, why the major basins are installed as they are. So, as far as if the property's higher than the property to the west, we could look at that, but I
It's
don't
not
believe
much,
there
but
was
it
any.
just doesn't drain properly.
Okay, and that may be due to just the condition of the land, which isn't completed or graded. The other thing that was brought up was the neighbor has left out onto Cottage Grove Road, and there's no plan to change that. We approached them on, and that will stay as is. Different people, different businesses looking at the planned business or planned office space as it is now, you know, have said, you know, it'd be nice to have like an access where it's right in, right out.
Right.
But there'd be no plan to put in you know, a lot of median cuts or anything for all those businesses. They'd be right in, right out until they get to Sandpiper, where there would be a intersection.
So the current median cut is for you? these
Only.
folks? Okay.
Will those be stop and go lights there?
There's a plan when warrants are met that there is conduit in that build when the last time Cottage Grove Road was paved in that area, so it's a long-range plan, but it's planned that
So the underground
someday.
stuff is already in? Okay. All right, Aaron, did you have anything else?
No, I think that was it. We'd recommend approval.
Okay, any plan commission members, comments or questions?
Do you close the hearing first?
I think so. We don't have anybody else to speak, so I guess at 6:55, I'll close the public hearing. All right, we'll move down to item 10. It's discuss and consider the request from Hamburg Equipment to rezone the 4 parcels in the Coyle Highland South subdivision along West Cottage Grove Road from neighborhood office to planned business.
Motion to approve.
Okay.
Second.
Motion and second to approve the request from Hamburg Equipment. Any other discussion? Okay, if not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, motion passes. All right, now item 11, relating to the same thing, is discuss and consider request from Hamburg Equipment for approval of 3 certified survey maps to reconfigure lots in the Coyle Highlands South subdivision for the purpose of eliminating one lot and increasing the size of others. There's electronic attachments in your packet, and Andrew, if you want to address that part of it.
Sure. The 50-foot building setback is probably a good segue into this issue. One of the CSMs, the one that addresses the land that would be west of Sandpiper and south of Emerald Court, it's indicated here, again, that's that 50-foot building setback line instead of the standard 30-foot. And when we started to really look critically at this building envelope, it was challenging to make that work. So this 4-lot CSM is shifting that original property line 20 feet northeasterly. And then this one is shifting by 10. And it's not increasing the size per se, it's taking that square footage and just adjusting the envelope a little bit so I can get the home sites that we'd like to in there. Similarly, and I guess this is probably the primary driver of this 3 CSMs here that are before you, is up in this area behind lot 1. There was a former outlot 1 that is part of the plat there that had been slated for a well site back when Coyle Highlands South and North were considered for approval and approved. The village had plans to put a well site there. The village no longer has plans to install a well there. So what we're doing with this CSM here is absorbing that old outlot into the commercial lot 1 and into the adjacent residential lots to redistribute that footage. It will be offset in the future. Again, the next agenda item in the 5th edition of West Lawn, elsewhere if the village wants, by an equivalent square footage of land. So that.
Andrew, do you remember when DeWitt and Harms subdivided that, and we were dealing with that well lot? Was that ever? Were they ever given credit for that, or did the village? Do you remember that transaction, or was that part of your transaction? And
credit in terms of, okay, so MMSD fees will need to be paid on that outlot because wasn't within the sewer description.
Right.
And I've been communicating with them about that. In terms of, I think there was some compensation that DeWitt and Harms received for that lot.
Yeah.
I remember reading the old developers agreement,
Right.
and seeing a monetary figure associated with the lot.
It would have been based on fee in lieu of parkland dedication fees going the other way.
Okay.
So an offset to that.
Yeah. We will look for that same acreage
Right.
north,
It's roughly a half acre.
up,
Right.
in another development.
Just right.
Yeah.
In the northwest neighborhood. So.
Yep.
Okay.
And the third element is the head of Emerald Court, the head of the cul-de-sac here. There were 5 lots around the perimeter, starting at kind of the waist, 7 if you go down to here. These 2 remain the same with the exception of this lot absorbing a portion of the former well site. But I was challenged with getting building envelopes to fit on those 5 lots around the perimeter of the head. So this CSM reconfigures that and breaks it down into 4 lots.
Okay.
And for the sake of total transparency, I may or may not record that document. I'd like to ask for approval on it and then conclude a negotiation and kind of nail down whether we truly can fit on there or not.
Okay.
There's some question about that, but again, the primary drivers were 1 and 2, and this third one is something that, if it's to the satisfaction of the committee, I'd like to receive an approval, and then if we choose not to record it, I would just simply notify you and say we're not going to record that, and then lots 8 through 12 remain unchanged.
Okay. Any comments on that, Aaron or Mike, or that?
Recommend approval.
Okay.
Yeah. Just comments on the well site again. You know, we've got, the village has 2 wells in the low pressure area, and with the development plans for the north, we have 1 well in the higher pressure zone, well 4, which is way over by the, you know, in the Commerce Park.
Right.
So we're looking for another site in the northwest quadrant, which would be part of a future development, you know, probably off the corner of 4th Edition to Coyle, where there is a park, but when that gets platted further north and west. And so there was a lot of things going on, and you know, I think Aaron commented on it too. I mean, they're taking 1 lot out, and it'll help with a lot of the public works issues with a cul-de-sac by cutting down on the lots in that area, as well as there's a large diameter storm sewer pipe coming through there to pick up that water from the northwest heading southeast through there. So by cutting down on that lot, they created a much better route for stormwater through there.
Any questions from the plan commission members? Okay. All right, if we don't have anything else, I will make a motion to approve the request for the certified survey maps reconfiguring the lots in Coyle Island.
Second.
Okay. Motion second to approve. Any other discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, motion passes. Moving along here, down to 12. Discuss and consider petition for direct annexation by unanimous consent from Hamburg Equipment and Ellery and Margaret Jensen for annexation of approximately 228 acres from the town of Cottage Grove into the village of Cottage Grove. There's about 6 documents in your packet here. And I'll let Andrew talk about that when he gets his maps changed here.
All right, I think most of you have seen this before. This is the northwest neighborhoods of the planning section for the Village of Cottage Grove. To benchmark it, where you see lots and roads highlighted here, this is this 40-acre parcel right now that we're currently building out the last phase in, just north of Glacial Drama Middle School. At the time of plating of the 4th edition of West Lawn Estates, back in 2013, we were asked to look beyond that to the growth curve for the village into the north and western boundaries. Since roughly 1992, we've been pushing north and west, to some degree pushing back against that. This land has been looked at extensively in the course of the last 10 years. We have a wealth of information in terms of soil analysis, stormwater management, topography. What you're seeing here is topo lines for the 228 acres. Again, just to fill in, I guess, this segment here, the former Nodstat property, is the property that's currently owned by the Monona Grove School District and is the next agenda item as a petition for annexation. And this is the Blair property down the corner, GD Middle School, 4th Ad, and the 226 acre boundary. We have conceptually planned this area. Clearly, we'll be coming to you in the future here several times to discuss the next phase of actual planning and construction. That is this next piece right here, 60 to 70 acres, due north and slightly east and west of the current neighborhood. In 2017, we worked with the village in petitioning CARPC to amend the urban service area for the village of Cottage Grove to incorporate this into our urban service area boundary. The entirety of it is there. Planning with MMSD and CARPC and the village and Hamburg has been ongoing for a number of years to provide those services. We have sanitary sewer services located here and here, here and here and there, as well as water main. Also, for reference, the water main extension that extended from roughly Highway N from the tower, going westward on Gaston, and then turning just before the homestead buildings for the Jensen property was installed in 2017? I believe in 2017. I think there was a service area amendment as well as the installation of the high-pressure water main system. Part of the data on this plan is high-low water main pressure system. The bottom line is to move into the northwest neighborhoods, to be able to develop this acreage, including the school site. There's a necessity for the high-pressure zone to come from the east, and that's in place and buried through the field. Our first phase would be extending Damascus north to this next 40 line, and eventually driving through to Gaston Road. As I alluded to, we're working on concept planning and neighborhood design for the 5th Avenue West Lawn Estates. I don't intend to reinvent the wheel. It will be a single-family neighborhood. We will provide areas within the neighborhood to offer different housing affordability types for our buyers. That would be consistent with the master plan indication as yellow, so as indicated over on that wall. As we move west into the western sections of it, get closer to the nexus here of Gaston and Bus, which becomes a primary intersection eventually. Bus is slated to be a 100-foot right-of-way all the way down to Cottage Grove Road. Bus, Damascus, Sandpiper are your primary north-south corridors, with Damascus a 36-foot face-to-face through street from Cottage Grove Road all the way to Violence, I guess, at this point.
Andrew, did I hear you say that that's going to be designated with the 5th edition?
The next plat that we'll be bringing forward here soon will be the 5th edition of West Lawn Estates.
Okay, and, okay, so that you're looking to, for that developer agreement this summer?
Correct.
Okay. In how many phases?
For the 5th edition,
Yeah. I mean, even the ballpark?
5.
Okay.
Tell me what absorption rate. So
Well, no, I'm going to hold you to that now, because
given the current economic climate.
yeah.
Yes.
Right, I got it.
Right.
All right.
I would like to up our absorption rate a little bit compared to what we've done over the course of the last 5 years. The early stages of 4th Avenue West Lawn, there was still some heartburn from the Great Recession. It took a little time. The nice thing is I think we're going to build some momentum. There's some pent-up demand right now, because as we've wound down in 4th Ave and our inventory has diminished, there's some pressure. And that's why, frankly, I'm very anxious to move rapidly into Coyle Highlands South completion as well as 5th Ave, so we can keep the momentum going that we've worked so hard to build over the last 25 years, 26 years.
Okay.
And I think this is a great place to do it.
Any comments from Aaron or Mike on this?
The north leg of Bus Road from Gaston down to your parcel, where you have parcels on both sides of the road, you have the annexation of the center line. Is there
West
any?
right away. West line of the right of way. So what I did is I looked at what was done on the Blair property on the corner of Cottage Grove and Bus, and that annexation petition went to the west side of the right of way of Bus Road.
I think we got an amended map on that.
Okay.
Initially, if I remember correctly, it was a center line, and then we got an amended one that showed to the west.
And so, and this is just one person's opinion, but I thought perhaps the bus from Cottage Grove to Gaston in its entirety became a village maintenance and control segment, that maybe it would make sense for the township to maintain Gaston, because the majority of Gaston is in the township, and in between the highway departments, they could work together and figure out a way to do that. Now, I don't get to make those choices, but that's just a layman's idea.
Okay. All right.
Okay, yeah, I was looking at possibly a map that didn't have that change, but it is over to the west line, and it just, from, like you say, maintenance and developers' responsibilities and things like that, it's challenging to do it to the center line.
Yeah, and I don't know if how many people saw it, but a month ago or so, when the culverts were all freezing up and the south end of Bus Road, right at the intersection with Cottage Grove Road, flooded. I was really heartened to see that both crews were out there working together. The town and the village crews were out there, and it was just nice, because in the middle of those events, it's just good to fix it.
Aaron, anything else? Okay. Plan commission members, any comments or questions? Rand?
Is it your intent to keep the same theme of park through this next edition as you did in
Park space?
Yeah, so we actually want to blow that up a little more than in the fourth ad, and create a more significant parkland area to serve the whole neighborhood. There are a couple of different designs that I'm working on right now, Jennifer, that clearly we're going to want input on. But there is an area where we've designated for parkland replacement for the rugby club transaction that would be in this area right here, to create a more significant centralized location and provide park services. But I don't, what I'm torn a little bit about is the park plan called for like 1 mega park, and I'm a little concerned that that's going to be too centralized, that it becomes a long commute for residents to get there.
I've been thinking about that big park for a long time.
Well, it could have a couple pretty good sized ones. Straddling a road is the concept I'm playing with, but I'd like to sit down, look at it with you guys, and that's part of the process. Is things are mutable and get refined as we move through it. But we're definitely looking at significant parkland areas to serve the needs of the new community.
Anything else from Plan Commission members? If not, I'll make a motion to approve the petition for annexation of 228 acres from the town of Cottage Grove into the village of Cottage Grove.
Second. It's a good habit.
All right. Motion and second to approve the annexation. Oh. All right. Well, I guess Chris wants to speak against it, so go ahead.
Hello.
Hey.
Yes, we agreed with moving the boundary to the west on Bus Road. It makes sense to us. We'll take Gaston, village take the rest. I think before you act on the annexation, you need to have a developer's agreement and time frame as to when development's going to happen. Too often in the past, you've annexed with plans to develop, nothing's ever happened. You've got acres and acres of land that's been annexed. It's still farmland. You've never done a thing with it. Do you want to make the same mistake again, possibly? Not that you would, but it's best to have all of those crossed before you annex it. And prior to annexation, it would be nice if you met with the town and we discussed how roads are going to connect, or are they? Because we have subdivisions to the east of it. And are those roads going to connect, and is it a benefit to both of us, and who's going to pay for it? That's it.
Thank you. All right. We have a motion and a second to approve the annexation. Any other discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Okay. Motion passes. Thank you, Andrew. Look forward to
Hope to see you again soon.
working with you. All right. We're down to 13. Discuss and consider petition for direct annexation by unanimous consent from Monona Grove School District for annexation of approximately 41 acres from the town of Cottage Grove into the village of Cottage Grove. Is somebody here from Monona School tonight or not? Otherwise, I'll let Aaron and... Oh,
Because I tried to
okay.
get a hold of Jared.
That's what I thought. I mean,
Yeah,
yeah. I mean, to be clear, it's basically the kitty corner parcels, and they're looking for access from one to the other without having to have egress and access from Bus Road, so they can all go on to Damascus. I think that's pretty much the gist of it. Okay.
Well, this is just for that parcel, it's not,
Right.
it's not, yeah.
It's not for access at this point.
Right, it's just diagonal.
Right.
Property, right.
Just because otherwise they just touch at the corners, which wouldn't work. So, it'd be a pretty narrow road.
Yeah, you would.
Any, Aaron, Mike, anything on that annexation petition?
This one, the school district did show it to the center line of Bus Road. We've talked to them about, again, including the whole right of way, and that's.
Same
what we're
as
taking ahead.
Andrews, okay. All right, any questions or comments from Plan Commission?
I think someone should have been here.
I do too, yeah.
I'd like to see us table it.
I agree.
I'm fine with tabling it till, I mean, I'm sure they can appear at the next Plan Commission.
Well, I think they kind of wanted to get it going, though.
You should have been here now.
Huh?
Did they tell you guys that they weren't coming at all, or?
Motion to table.
Second.
All right, motion and second to a table. Do we need a date as in next Plan Commission meeting, or just table it?
You just table it, and then if the next meeting, if it'll show up on the agenda, and if it's not taken off the table, then it's supposed to
Right.
go away until another request is submitted. But I think that it's important to, let applicants know that really it's been the standard of the board to ask and require applicants to actually be here.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to the annexation. I just think it's, in all fairness, they need to be here to present and answer questions. I think that's simple enough, so. All right, motion and second to table. Any other discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, well, yeah, motion to table passes.
And I have to go. I apologize.
Okay.
I double booked myself tonight.
It happens.
Melissa, you voted no?
Melissa voted no, yeah. All right. Number 14, presentation by David Raysop, if I hope I got that right, of the concept plan for Kennedy Hills. All right. So gentlemen, the little white thing that's on the table is actually a camera, which if you put something under there, it will appear on the TV screens behind you so everybody can see it if you have any kind of maps or anything. Or otherwise, you'll just see your hand on there if you put your hand on it. But,
There you go.
yeah. So we're here to listen to what you have to say.
Well, my name is David Reesop. I own approximately 70 acres on the corner of Kennedy Road, DB. And that area is, I farmed it for going a little over 6 years now. The area shown on your comprehensive plan is unsewered residential. And I'd like to make plans to develop it in 3 phases.
Okay.
There's a total.
Northeast corner of BB and Kennedy Road, okay.
Yes.
And this is in our ETJ, and there's attachments in your packet. Aaron, any thoughts on this?
So this first phase is 16 lots, correct?
Correct.
Using the town's transfer development rights program. As David pointed out, it is designated as unsewered residential development, single family in our comp plan. I think this has been in discussion and in the works for quite a while. We're finally getting to the point here where it's looking to become a reality. Mike and I met with these gentlemen last week and looked over the plan and really didn't have any concerns about it.
Okay.
There's no action to be taken tonight. We just, if there were any concerns on behalf of
Sure.
the plan commission, we want to let them know ahead of time before they come
Okay.
in with them.
Any board members have any questions for the applicants? It's, again, not for consideration, it's a discussion and presentation, so.
Check. Dave, how many phases were you talking about?
3,
Okay. And total number of lots?
64.
Okay, so roughly 20 per phase, something like that?
About.
Okay.
It's kind of tied to development rights. The way that,
Okay.
first one would be 16 lots.
All right.
Goes on from there.
Sure.
Depends how the roads line.
All right.
I would just note that the lots don't match up with the current lots that are there. I know that was an issue for other town residents, so I don't know,
Oh, you mean the next lots in the next?
yeah, that are currently developed.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw, but we had some issues where they like the lot lines to line up rather than stagger so much. I don't know if that's something you can consider. Again, it's not for a vote tonight.
We met with the township really last year and had a full public hearing, and the neighbors showed up, and the lot line pattern of the existing to Conestoga and to the whole southern chord off of American Way is all great variance. You'll just never get them all to line up.
Okay, because of the topography?
Yeah,
Okay.
it just doesn't make any sense, or it's simply not necessary.
Okay.
The road pattern is very nice the way it is.
Yeah, there's quite a tree line along there as well. You know, it's not like
Okay.
it'd be evident that there's a jog there.
Okay, just so you know, you might hear that brought up again, just something that has been brought up in the past. So. All right, any other questions or comments from Plan Commission or Aaron or Mike?
And it doesn't matter that it doesn't fit with what our comp plan proposes, correct? Because like our comp plan has a street, a proposed street going right through their
Yeah.
lot, so.
They have that street most of the way. We show it coming to DB, I think, because if there's development to the south and that development to the south has a street that comes up, we want to make sure those streets align. But they're not having that street come to BB, they're accessing off Kennedy instead. So that doesn't concern me.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you for bringing this to our attention. Appreciate the map and the explanation.
Okay, thank you.
All right, that brings us down to 15. Discuss and consider request from Oakstone Recreation for approval of an amended site plan for the proposed bar, restaurant, and volleyball facility at the northeast corner of Commerce Parkway and Herb Road. And we have a gentleman here. Hopefully I got this right. Scott Trill. Did I say that correctly?
Yeah, Scott Trill with Freedom.
Yep. Okay.
And Josh.
Hi.
We met.
All right.
Good evening.
And again, the white arm, there's a camera if you want to put anything up on our
Right.
screens behind you, so. Okay. Go ahead and, I guess, tell us what your revisions proposed are, and then Aaron and Mike can comment on that.
Sure. I think it perhaps from a site plan standpoint, we really have not changed much from what was originally approved last year. We came back. We made a number of modifications to the outside of the building. And again, last week went before the Architectural Review Committee. And so,
Okay.
again, they had a few recommendations, things that we will incorporate.
Okay.
Kind of go from there, but I think beyond that, perhaps,
All right.
Mike?
Anything, Mike, from
I just want to be sure they're prepared to hook up to the existing utilities out there for sewer and water. There's really not a sanitary in that block of Commerce Parkway. It's very deep in Herb Road, it's even deep in the easement, but we have a riser coming up.
Right.
Yes, it'll have to go under your building to maybe a few utility rooms in front, but somebody hadn't gotten back to me on that. And then the water's not far from the building on the corner, so just
Right.
as long as you're good with those conditions that we had here.
We're definitely aware of the depth that we have to get with the sanitary and the like. Mike, I saw your report tonight for the first time, and so I was curious. There were a couple other conditions or a couple other comments or changes. I wasn't sure if they were things that had previously been incorporated. Specifically, I was curious about the extension of the sidewalk and the curb to the property line.
Yeah, we got a more complete set of plans that indicated, the sidewalk and that is ending at a certain point, and talking to Public Works on that, they'd like to see that carried through. Basically, working with just half that cul-de-sac bulb, so.
So, again, currently the curbing out on Commerce stops
at a point of basically the western edge of the cul-de-sac bulb.
Okay.
So are you recommending
Yeah.
or telling us then that we need to?
Well, the development's responsibilities haven't transpired into the curb and gutter, but they have on sidewalks, so that's something, I guess, for the village to take up with the curb and gutter issue, but continuation of the sidewalk would presume that you'll have a terrace to continue that to the property line.
Yeah, because again, from a planning perspective, what we were looking at, again, was effectively having the sidewalk runs obviously on the north side of Commerce, and as we get into this area, I guess from our planning perspective, didn't see a need for that sidewalk to go any further past that bulb. We also, to try and make sure we've got our parking, I wasn't exactly sure where that, if there's really enough room there for the sidewalk to continue around.
Sidewalk's on the other side of the thick black line towards the street, so yes,
There's room for the sidewalk then, Mike?
yeah, I'd be taking that, shaving that bulb out and putting the curb and gutter through, so your typical responsibility would just be the sidewalk, not the curb.
Okay.
Mike, I know we have a developer agreement which is really tied to value. Are we going to need like an amended agreement that deals with some of these types of issues?
Yeah, just that particular item. I think everything else they're doing is, well, the driveway access easement. I think you guys are still need an easement, as far as I know, for that. Is that correct?
So we're talking about
Now the backside, yeah.
this easement?
Yeah. One of our conditions is to provide a legal description for that easement. So that's probably still out there as a to-do.
Yes, I saw your comments again, needing to get the easement. Also saw that you're looking for a gate, two-part gate across that, and it looked like some extension of some fencing.
Yep.
Wasn't quite sure where that was going.
The engineering plans do show a gate. It's a pretty simple gate, which is fine, but they just had a couple pieces going in towards the lift station. We went out so that more of the property is covered from the ingress and egress traffic. So it's parallel.
We can provide you with a copy
Yeah.
of like one of the driveway access easements out in the Commerce Park. I mean, remarkably, they all look similar, but that way you can at least get an idea of responsibilities and that type of thing.
All right. Any questions from Plan Commission members?
As far as the ARC, they approved it last week unanimously with the additions in the staff report, and then they added a couple of items that are reflected in the village action report. There's a lot of discussion about the rooftop units and how those would be screened. It looks like we kind of talked before the meeting that there's a plan to deal with that.
After our meeting last week, we have a number of rooftop mechanical units that will be a part of this. Again, the high side of the building, the element of the building that is on the west side, that really is what you're going to see when you come down Commerce. This building is the taller. It's where the volleyball facility actually is. We'll have 2 rooftop units as a part of that. And then on the bar restaurant area, we have a couple of rooftop units, 3 rooftop units and a makeup air unit. And so after our discussion last week, we've condensed, we've put those together as close as we can, excuse me, and are then, to meet the screening ordinance, are then looking to screen a continuous screen across around those units, providing a little bit of access at the high side of the building to be able to service those units. And I had shared very quickly with Aaron before the meeting the commission asked for consistent material that's like or consistent with the rest of the building as opposed to some type of a lattice work or others. And so I was asking if this type of material is consistent, this kind of a look. Again, we have the wall panels are an insulated wall panel. They're not just the typical corrugated metal type projects that you're having there. They're horizontal in nature. The bar restaurant, as you saw in the plans, has more fluted, more vertical kind of drawing. And so I indicated to Aaron that if this was consistent, we're going to get samples and make sure staff can sign off on it. But again, the major change was after last week's meeting, we made sure that all of our units are in one basic area, so we don't have a bunch of chimneys per se up there in terms of when we screen that.
Just one instead of, so.
Right.
And the ARC pointed out there was kind of a tight fit with some of the landscaping up against the infiltration area on the south side, because they have kind of bulked up the landscaping from the previous site plan approval. They just wanted to make sure that the species were compatible with the wet condition, or else the landscaping should be shifted to a different location. Then the ARC added a condition that the panels on the building would be of a higher quality concealed fastener system, which is what was the intention anyway.
Aaron's comment about the landscaping, as he did mention, I think we're close to double the points that we actually need. But one of the commission members was concerned about the location that we have for a lot of these plants and things that are there. I was sure that if you remember just a bit ago, we were showing you the sidewalk being right here, and he noted that effectively the landscape plan was putting all those plants right in the sidewalk. And so he said, well, make sure we don't move them all necessarily down into the water basin, because we're talking about an area that could potentially have water for 36 hours down there. And so we'll be adjusting that accordingly.
Okay. All right. That's it.
Yes, we'd recommend approval with conditions in Mike's report and with the conditions in the village action.
Okay. Questions from Plan Commission members? All right. I'll make a motion to approve the request with the conditions from Plan, ARC, and Engineering.
Second.
Any other discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. So the next step is village board for them?
Next Monday.
Yep. All right, looking forward to it.
Thank you.
All right, we're down to item 16, discuss and consider proposal from MSA regarding typical road sections in the village. I didn't see any attachments in the packet on that.
Okay, I'll have to table it.
Okay,
Need a motion?
yeah.
I'll make a motion to table.
I'll second.
Motion and second to table item 16. Any other discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. 17 is discuss results of the housing questionnaire distributed at the March meeting. One of my thoughts was too, just since we have new boards and maybe new people on the plan commission, maybe give them that same questionnaire. Just a thought, but.
Well, I only got 3 of them back, so.
Oh yeah, we gotta work on getting more of them back. That's
I
good.
said aye right away.
Me
too.
I thought I sent it and turns out
Gold
I
star
didn't.
people are all.
Yeah, okay.
So
That's
try
why
to
they're
get
not
their
here
ask, and
tonight.
I think that's a good idea to get them from, if there
From
was
the
a
new
change
people
in
too.
the
Okay,
commissioners as well. So
all right,
look at that next time.
all right. And then we're down to comments from commission members. I have nothing. Phyllis?
No.
Melissa?
Easter egg hunt, 10 a.m., North Lawn Park,
In the snow, they're all white eggs.
Saturday.
Yeah.
Snow should be melted by then.
Fred, anything?
Hopefully it won't be wet.
Okay. All right, future agenda items, I guess that would be the school district annexation item and Mike's road section discussion. Anything else?
The housing questionnaire.
The housing questionnaire? Okay. Anything else?
Motion to adjourn.
Wait a minute.
Come on.
I want to ask
Twice.
I just want to ask the scouts if they learned anything tonight, if this was worthwhile for them. And I'll tell you that 50 years ago, if I had come to one of these meetings as a scout, I'm not sure that I would But if you come Monday night, you'll get a lot more action. It's-
Yep.
It was a long agenda, and we got through it really quickly, so.
We really appreciate you guys coming here.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And you only see, it's like an iceberg. I mean, you don't really see how much work goes on behind the scenes with staff and with the board. They just don't show up every month, and then, you know, it's like they go through the agenda. There's a lot of work that goes into it, so really appreciate you guys coming.
Thank you.
Yes, I second that.
All right,
Okay, now I will motion to adjourn.
thank you.
I'll second.
Okay, motion and second to adjourn, non-debatable. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you.